Shortly before Christmas, as he was pushing Republican congressmen to pass their tax reform bill, President Trump invited a group of them to the White House to Darkest Hour. Joe writes film stars Gary Oldman as a blubbery Churchill lurching drunkenly, emotionally, but eventually inspiringly through the events of May and June 1940, his elevation to number 10, then through Dunkirk and climaxing with his great "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" speech to the Commons on June 4. On Sunday night, Oldman earned a richly deserved Golden Globe for his performance. The message from Trump was obvious. Churchill was an unpopular figure in his own party, propelled to power at a time of national need. A political rebel with interests beyond politics and a gift for talking over the heads of the establishment directly to the people. The film shows Churchill spending his mornings in bed, eating breakfast and working. Trump, according to Michael Wolff's new book Fire and Fury, spends his evenings in bed scoffing cheeseburgers and in cable news. The two would differ over alcohol, though. Trump is teetotal. Churchill drank almost non-stop. Film in 2018. The best and biggest releases this year. After seeing the film over Christmas, Mike Huckabee, the conservative TV host and father of Trump's press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, rammed the comparison home in a tweet. Churchill was hated by his own party, opposition party and press. Feared by King as reckless, and despised for his bluntness. But unlike Neville Chamberlain, he didn't retreat. We had a Chamberlain for 8 years in at Real Donald Trump, we have a Churchill. Huckabee's comparison of President Obama to Chamberlain and Trump to Churchill achieved its aim of riling Democrats and stoking pro-Trump Republicans. It was also a reminder that for all the great figures in American political history, it is a British Prime Minister who still sets the standard for leadership. Americans still suffer from a bad case of Churchill envy. While The Darkest Hour is a story of political heroism, the main American political film of the season is Steven Spielberg's rehashing of President Nixon's skullduggery in the Post. It is about the Washington Post's owner, editors and reporters exposing Nixon's lies about the war in Vietnam. With the exception of Spielberg's Lincoln, released in 2012, it is hard to think of a recent American film which paints a political figure in a favorable light. The mood of political darkness, a house of cards Paul, has only been compounded by Trump. Unlike JFK, Nixon and Clinton, Churchill carries no baggage, just a whiff of smoke and victory. Britain, meanwhile, has not only been exporting Churchill but also rich glossy portrayals of its royal family, notably the Crown. While America trashes elites, Britain is doing a brisk trade in glorifying its own. One explanation for Churchill's enduring popularity in the US is that he is non-partisan. He is neither Republican nor Democratic. Just British. And a winner. Everyone can rally round. Americans see little of the darkness, tragedy or controversy which has stuck to many of their own presidents since Franklin Roosevelt. From JFK's life and assassination, through Nixon's resignation, to Bill Clinton's impeachment and George W. Bush's war on terror. Churchill, by comparison, carries no baggage. Just a whiff of cigar smoke, victory and great quotes. Darkest Hour is of his best lines, and the best lines used about him. After he delivers his climactic speech in the Commons, the camera pans to a seething Lord Halifax up in the gallery, asked by his neighbour to explain what Churchill had just done. He mobilised the English language and sent it into battle. The best films to see in London cinemas this week. That was a line used by President Kennedy about Churchill in 1963, when he made him America's first ever honorary citizen. American critics have been curiously proprietorial about this latest portrayal of Churchill. While most have praised Oldman, Kyle Smith in the conservative National Review lambasted the film for shrinking Churchill from a lion to a jellyfish. He blames our irresolute and small-minded age for applying its own neuroses backward to history. Churchill is seen as a tormented leader rather than a swaggering one. A. O. Scott, in the New York Times, accused the film of offering a downright reactionary view of the English character that feels as empty as those ubiquitous keep calm and carry on internet memes. Rather than invite the audience to think about the difficulties of democratic governance at a time of peril, the filmmakers promote passivity and hero worship, offering not so much a great man theory as a great man fetish. In politics, and particularly among Republicans, Churchill is a source of constant reference and inspiration. In the autumn of 2016, as Trump advanced on the presidency, political analyst Bill Kristol, one of the loudest Republican voices against Trump's candidacy, wrote that a catastrophe was looming for his party. He urged Republicans to forget about all that had happened so far and band together to force Trump to step down. He quoted Churchill's June 18, 1940, address to the Commons: "Of this I am quite sure, that if we open a quarrel between the past and the present, we shall find that we have lost the future." After ing darkest hour, Michael Gerson, George W. Bush's former speechwriter, wrote a long, reflective piece in the Washington Post. He wrote that while May 1940 was awful, it was not permanent, and that Churchill's unreasonable optimism helped carry Britain through. "Many of us view this example not only with appreciation but with longing," he wrote. "The problem of our time is not only arrogance without accomplishment or swagger without success. These are common enough in politics. Rather, it is the arrival of leadership that survives by feeding resentment, hatred and disorienting flux. Leadership urging us, at angry rallies, in ethnic stereotyping, through religious bigotry, to forget who we really are as a people. Leadership that has ceased to believe in the miracle at our country's heart, the inclusive, unifying power of American ideals. America needs a Churchill," he suggested, to carry them through this political version of May 1940. "In the meantime, we shall fight on the beaches." But Trump is pressing his own claim on Churchill. One of his first acts as president was to restore a bust of Churchill to the Oval Office. President Obama had kept it on a table in his residence, so he could make room in the Oval Office for a bust of Martin Luther King. Boris Johnson taunted that this revealed the part Kenyan president's ancestral dislike of the British Empire, of which Churchill had been such a fervent defender. Republicans were simply happy to see Churchill back at the elbow of power. Churchill coined the term special relationship, referring to Britain and the United States. It had special resonance for him, as his mother was American. But it is one that is under constant scrutiny and re-evaluation. Darkest Hour has a scene in which Churchill pleads for help from Roosevelt, but is turned down. The Americans' refusal compounds his isolation. Roosevelt was up for election, and had promised to keep the U.S. out of war. Meanwhile, his ambassador to London, Joseph Kennedy, the father of JFK, was arguing for appeasement and negotiation with Germany. Even today, the relationship can be uneven. Obama called David Cameron bro, but said if Britain left the European Union it would be at the back of the queue in future trade negotiations with the US. President Trump has shown more willingness to negotiate bilaterally. Whatever the issues of the day, both sides are lucky to have Churchill's ghost still holding them together.